Hey, Jarek here. Taking a look at my channel, you can quickly find out that I really like first-person shooters. I've been playing them my entire life, so a list like this was inevitable. I need to make a few rules as to what qualifies as a top 10 list though. Rule number 1, I'm going to be talking about single-player shooters. If a game has both single-player and multiplayer, I will not be taking multiplayer into account. Single-player and multiplayer is so different that I feel like they deserve their own lists. Maybe I'll make a top 10 multiplayer shooters list in the future. I don't know if people want to see that enough, then I guess I will. But for now, we'll focus on single-player. Rule number 2. Only one game per franchise. This is to keep the list interesting, otherwise the whole list would just be a bunch of Doom and Half-Life games. So if I put something like Doom in this list, it can only take up that one slot and be that one Doom game. Rule number 3, this is going to be a more subjective list. I don't want this list to turn into the most influential or most innovative first-person shooters. That list would boil down to number 2 being Half-Life and number 1 being Doom or something like that, and that's just not interesting. And with that all said, keep in mind that lists like this are going to be highly subjective. What I find fun in a first-person shooter, you may find annoying or very boring, and that's totally okay. So I'm very curious. I want you to pause this video and leave your top 10 down below in the comments. I want to compare and see how many of those games line up with the games I put in my top 10. I genuinely want to know. At number 10, The Darkness 1. The Darkness 1 is a game begging for a PC release. And while typically a top 10 shooters list will mostly be talking about gameplay, The Darkness is an exception. The gameplay certainly isn't bad, but that's not really what you're going to remember about The Darkness 1. You're going to remember the atmosphere and, most importantly, the story. This is a game that introduces the main character, gets you attached to him, and then right away lets you watch an entire movie sitting in your girlfriend's apartment. The levels of tragedy and how absolutely messed up Jackie's life is leads to some of the most memorable experiences I've ever had in a video game. I would say if you haven't played The Darkness 1 to go play it yourself, but with it not being on PC, that makes it a little more difficult. It is apparently playable now on the PS3 emulator, so give that a shot. At number 9, Metro. Again, another franchise where story is a big component of its success. However, in this case, the gameplay is more than serviceable. Metro is a work of art. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the groundbreaking graphics, the tense survival gameplay that will keep you on the edge, or the story that will keep you invested throughout the entire play length of the game. There's just a sort of feeling of overwhelming hopelessness, but at the same time, you want to explore. You want to know more about these people, you want to know more about their struggles, you want to know more about this world. And this might be a controversial take, but the Metro game I'm putting here at number 9 is actually Metro Exodus. I absolutely loved being able to explore these environments and find these mini stories hidden away. I know Exodus is a bit of a love it or hate it game among Metro fans, but for me, it's my favorite in the franchise.
There used to be 7 billion of us. We were not born for life in the tunnels. I was born to breathe fresh air, and I remember it.
At 8, we have Halo. Okay, before you get mad, I know this is pretty low on the list, but keep in mind we are not talking about multiplayer. The Halo games have an amazing universe with some great campaigns, but there's some stiff competition when it comes to single-player shooters. If you don't consider the multiplayer in this list, then it bumps Halo down a few tiers. And again, if you want to see a multiplayer list, maybe I'll do that in the future. Tell me below in the comments. I don't really know if there's enough interest for that. If there is, I'll do it. In that case, Halo would definitely be a top 3. Anyway, the game I'm putting here, I actually don't want to spoil, because I have ranked every single Halo game, both their campaigns and their multiplayer, in 2 other videos. So if you want to check those out, I'll put them up in the top right.
Were it so easy.
At number 7, we have Time Splitters 2. Even if you didn't see my Time Splitters videos, you probably already realized that I love Time Splitters. I use Time Splitters music in my videos all the time. Time Splitters isn't a game where you're going to get emotionally invested. It's not this atmospheric, immersive wonderment of a game. No, Time Splitters is just about having fun. The sheer amount of quality and quantity at the same time is absurd. Just in the campaign alone, you go to 10 different time periods and none of them use the same assets. Then you consider all the extra stuff you can get, like the challenges and characters you can unlock. There is just so much here with so much personality and character. Time Splitters is one of those franchises that's been dead for quite a while, but we're constantly getting news about a new one possibly coming out, and apparently there's a new studio making a new Time Splitters game. I just want some news. I want a new Time Splitters game so bad.
Yeah! Time to split!
I'll get the next one.
At number 6, we have Far Cry. Now, there's quite a few different Far Cry games I could put here. If I was going off of popularity, I would put Far Cry 3, but I don't really feel that. If I'm going off my personal favorite, I could put Blood Dragon, but I think the one to put here is Far Cry 2. Funny enough, the same reasons people hated Far Cry 2 when it first launched is the same reason it's so refreshing and new feeling today. Far Cry 2 is a game that does not care about you at all. It doesn't care if you're alive, it doesn't care if you die. The world is going to function as it is, with or without the player. And that sort of dark reality is something that's really missing in a lot of games. It also is one of the most immersive games I've ever played. I would absolutely love the next Far Cry game to take the Far Cry 2 approach, to drop all the RPG stuff they've been adding and go more survival almost. Far Cry 2 is certainly the most hardcore game in the franchise, and that's what makes it stand out so much to me. At number 5, we have a bit of an odd one, just because most people probably haven't played it because they're not really in a position to be able to. That's Boneworks. Boneworks is one of the best experiences I have had in recent gaming history. We've definitely reached the point of diminishing returns, but Boneworks is a totally new experience. The last time I've been engrossed in a game so vividly fresh and different and totally new was probably back in 2007. Now, a lot of this definitely does have to do with the fact that this is a VR title, but this wasn't the first VR title I played. Thank God, that would have made me throw up. No, I started with Half-Life Alyx and played H3VR, like I played other VR games before Boneworks. But in Boneworks, you can do anything you want. You want to break a glass bottle and stab someone with it? Go ahead. You want to pick up any 2 guns and dual wield? Go ahead. You want to climb anything? Go ahead. And I really cannot express this feeling of standing on top of something incredibly tall and looking down. It feels so real. If you're afraid of heights, this is either really good exposure therapy or just going to give you nightmares. But it's just this sort of vivid experience that I can't explain without giving you the headset. Boneworks is far and away my favorite VR game, and it's just not even close. I can't express how much I love it. At number 4, we have Rainbow Six Vegas. Rainbow Six Vegas operates in a niche that I don't think is capitalized on very much. That niche is tactical games with an arcade base. In fact, the only games that come to mind that do this are Insurgency and Rainbow Six Vegas. Let me explain. When I say tactical shooters, typically games go all in. Usually there's a lot more micromanaging, the game is a lot more serious. Or if they want to go deep enough, they go full on milsim like say Arma. None of those things are exactly quite what I want. With Rainbow Six Vegas, you can pick the game up immediately and understand you're playing a shooter, but at the same time, you'll quickly realize you were going to get absolutely demolished if you try to play it like any other shooter. This is a game where you are going to win your gunfights before anyone shoots at all. But at the same time, it's not a game that requires you to plan out the entire mission before you get to do anything. It's a game that's easy to pick up, but difficult to master. It's a tactical, punishing game with a ton of different content and a ton of guns to choose from. On top of that, it has one of the best modes ever. Terrorist Hunt. Up until just recently, I was still playing Terrorist Hunt 15 years later. Unfortunately, a good thing never lasts forever, and Ubisoft shut down the servers. You can still play it single player, but Terrorist Hunt is far more fun with friends, and co-op online is no longer possible. At number 3, I am putting Doom Eternal. Keep in mind, if I wasn't limiting this to just one game per franchise, like half of this list would be Doom games. Doom is just a really good franchise. But personally, my favorite Doom game is Doom Eternal. Doom Eternal to me is an upgrade over Doom 2016 in every imaginable way. I've been describing it as FPS meets Devil May Cry. There is so much player expression, so many ways to solve every single problem, so many weapon combinations. Combine this with a confident aesthetic, this raw, energetic soundtrack, and this is a game that will give you pure energy while simultaneously draining you at the same time. I cannot express how much I love Doom Eternal. I wear a Doom Eternal hoodie all the time, I use its music for the outro of my videos, I use its music for the intro of my streams. It's just, if there was one word to describe Doom Eternal, it would have to be badass. At number 2, I am going to put F.E.A.R. Extraction Point. I think I mentioned F.E.A.R. in almost every single one of my videos, and for good reason. Combat in this game is simply unmatched. Every combat encounter is going to play out differently due to how smart the AI is and how diverse the arenas are. On top of that, any shot you do is going to tear a chunk out of the wall or blow up something sitting on a desk. It's very easy to see where you have been in F.E.A.R. because a battle before and after is going to make a room look totally different. But that's just the combat side. The horror side well, honestly in the original F.E.A.R is a little lacking, and that's why I put F.E.A.R Extraction Point here instead of the original F.E.A.R. Extraction Point to me is the peak of the F.E.A.R franchise. While there were a few moments in the original F.E.A.R that might get you,
oh my god.
Extraction Point dialed this up to 11, both when it comes to the combat and the horror.
Why am I going into the mature? Oh. That's scary as...
There are no amount of words that can give enough praise to F.E.A.R, and I'm so glad that we're starting to see indie games taking massive inspiration from F.E.A.R. People that played this game when they were young are now old enough to make their own games, and it's stuck with them all this time later. Now, there have been a lot of very good shooters over the years, so I obviously can't put all of them in top 10, so I'm gonna rapid fire some honorable mentions. Two very, very close games reaching top 10 are BioShock and Crysis 1. BioShock doesn't need much of an explanation. It's very different from all these other shooters I mentioned, and Rapture is the place you will remember. But can it run Crysis? I heard this for a good 7 years after Crysis 1 came out, but that undermines the gameplay. Don't let anyone tell you that Crysis was only remembered because of the graphics. The gameplay was still a ton of fun. Are you trying to tell me it's not fun to chuck a Korean into the ocean? Engage! Serious Sam is another legendary franchise for that time where you want to hold S instead of W. Black for making a modern military campaign that didn't actually suck. Stalker probably should be top 10, but I'm gonna be honest, I just don't have the amount of experience needed to really put it in my top 10, maybe sometime in the future. Metroid Prime is an interesting, different kind of shooter, but I mean, I think it still counts and can qualify for being in the honorable mention list. Wolfenstein is another franchise that is dangerously close to being top 10 for me, and if we're talking pure innovation and influence, it definitely would be. Prey 2006, not Prey 2017. Prey 2017 is an immersive sim, which I don't think really fits this list. Despite being in first person, immersive sims are kind of their own genre that is very different from traditional first person shooters, so I would make their own list. Anyway, Prey 2006 still breaks my heart. We're never gonna get a sequel to that game. And in a similar way, you're never gonna sequel to Star Wars Republic Commando. Damn it. Killzone is a franchise where the world building, the art style, and the guns are cooler than the actual game. I don't think Killzone 1, 2, or 3 really belong anywhere near the top 10. However, I will say Killzone Mercenary does deserve an honorable mention. Mercenary is an endlessly replayable game. Choose any mission you want, choose any gun you want, and they just give you tons of enemies to shoot up. It's way more fun than it needs to be. And it's on the PlayStation Vita. I definitely hold the opinion that Killzone Mercenary is by far the best Vita game. And the last honorable mention is one you've probably never heard of, Vertigo Remastered. The way I could describe Vertigo is that it is the best Half-Life game you've never played. I made a whole video on this. I would highly recommend you watch it. I can't stress enough just how good this game is. I mean, it really is just Half-Life with the tone of Portal. It's kind of like a mix between Half-Life Alyx and Boneworks as far as gameplay is concerned. But okay, in first place, we have Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Ha! Yeah, right. Without multiplayer, Call of Duty is mostly forgettable and doesn't belong anywhere near this list. In first place, we have the original Half-Life. To this day, you will still find DNA from the original Half-Life. Before Half-Life, first-person shooters were all about gameplay, but Half-Life showed there can be more to games than just that. Black Mesa is an immersive world, and we had never seen storytelling like this before at all. But we've heard that story before. Why did I choose Half-Life 1 over Half-Life 2 or any of the others? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I think the gameplay is just more fun. Half-Life 2 relies on a lot of gimmicks per chapter, but Half-Life 1 relies on just giving you a bunch of different guns and a bunch of different enemies and having good combat with incredible pacing. Personally, I'd say Opposing Force is the best thing to come out of Half-Life, but without Half-Life, Opposing Force wouldn't exist. If I could only play one game for the rest of my life, Half-Life 1 would have to be that game. It's quite easily my favorite, and well deserving of first place. So hey, there's my list. I have streamed all of these games at one point or another over to my Twitch, so if you want to come hang out in the future, my link is down below in the bottom right. If you subscribe to my Twitch, you also can see my videos ahead of time. And of course, I want to give big thanks to everyone here for watching this video up until the very end.